All right, I'm going to call the Hermiston City Council City Manager work session to order, where this evening we have a conversation with the council about our most recent broadband survey and the results. Right, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, thank you. So we've done this survey and had our consultants kind of go through it and analyze it, and so now Mr. Rivera is going to give you a summary of that, and we'll kind of talk about what are next steps and how do we keep moving on this goal. So,
good. Welcome, Mr. Rivera. You'll have to explain how this survey was different from the other 10 we sent out to our constituents this summer.
Well,
they were a little inundated this summer by surveys, I heard.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for having me tonight. With any of my presentations, you know, it's designed to be a conversation. So as we go through it, I put a copy of the results. It's going to be difficult to read them on the screen, so they're in front of you as we go through it and talk about it and have this discussion. But the way it differs from the 14 other surveys that we participated in, we were the first ones out the gate. But this was specifically designed, if you guys remember, we went out and started with the digital needs and readiness assessment, and that was kind of working with key stakeholders in our community, civic leaders, the school district, the hospitals, to kind of identify a broad range of what the priorities for the future in broadband look like. With that information, we then went back and did a financial assessment and looked at what it would cost to connect the city facilities. That was the key driver of this process to begin with. It still is how do we get connectivity to city facilities that have limited or very low bandwidth at the facilities to help in efficiencies with what we do as a city. So after we did the financial assessment, we asked council and said, you know, where do you want us to go from here? You know, the next step would be to go out and talk to the community, go out and ask the community actually what they want, to get some real quantitative, qualitative data to see where the city's actually at. A lot of assumptions were made in the early part of this process, and we wanted to see if we could go out and ask and get some of that data that we could make a more refined approach if we wanted to look at a business decision, if council is interested in a business decision moving forward and how we might connect city facilities. And if we do choose to do that, you know, are there ancillary benefits that could be provided if we had the infrastructure ran to connect our facilities? So tonight is the data associated with that. So what we started with was understanding what the digital goals and needs and readiness were. We went out and did community planning to raise awareness, drive engagement. You know, with any survey and the amount of surveys that were going on, getting participation in a survey like this, we knew from the start was going to take a lot of interaction and working with groups to get that message out. So we worked with community stakeholders. The chamber was a big partner. The school district assisted us. We used mailing lists and data that we had for all city accounts. We really wanted to target just the city of Hermiston residents. As taxpayers making those investments, we wanted to make sure that that's what it was targeted at. We did have some people fill it out from outside of the city limits, but we were able to use location data and pull that information out. So we have that information if we look at a larger scale, maybe if the county's interested at some point. But tonight's presentation's focused just within the city. We asked both residential and businesses to take this online survey, and those of you who took it saw how in-depth it was. You know, it took a good 20 minutes to complete the survey, work through it, and get that data. And so the amount of feedback we got, we were really pleased with. We had an internal goal of 500 residential surveys out of 5,000 approximate counts that we have. And this data we used not only with the city of Hermiston, but we were able to compare it to the other clients S&G has. And so they do this type of work all across the country, and we were able to look at cities with similar size demographics, similar challenges, things like that, to see kind of where we ranked and what we look like in comparison. So we did the data collection from January 26th through May 15th of this year. We received 827 households, 66 business You know, the business community, we had hoped for more. We partnered with the chamber. We used their mailing list. We asked. We went out multiple times and actually extended the deadline, made personal phone calls, and sent out emails from both Byron and you, Mr. Mayor, if you remember some of the feedback you might have received. And it was a real challenge to get the businesses to engage. The businesses that chose to engage, we got some great data. We would love to get more, but we were really pleased with our household numbers. You know, the citizens of Hermiston really took the time and provided us great information. So when you look at, and this is why that presentation in front of you is going to probably be a lot easier to process. When we look at the community goals, when we ask the citizens, both on the household and the business, you know, what's really your priority? What's your priority for broadband connectivity? And it's that new opportunities for economic growth for both businesses and residents. You know, that robust community broadband, new opportunities, economic growth, some city services, they saw value in that, some remote health. But as you're looking at these slides, green is high priority, yellow is medium priority, and blue is more on the lower priority. So when you're looking at those numbers, it really kind of gives you an indication that these are high priorities for our community. Then we looked at, well, how is the community currently being connected? What type of technology are they using? Are they using, you know, DSL, fiber, cable, fixed wireless, satellite? We even had 2 people respond via dial-up. And I thought that was impressive because the amount of time it would take to do dial-up was a real commitment to getting this completed, so I appreciated that. But we looked at it, and the majority of Hermiston residents use cable technology. Business primarily uses fiber for internet access. Based on our franchisee data, we kind of had an indication that that was going to be the case. But on the residential side, the primary driver is the cable. The unique part about this process and the survey that we did was to be able to capture GPS data on all the people who completed it. So in this slide, it's you know, it's easier to have the slide in front of you, but this shows exactly where all the people around Hermiston who filled this survey out, where they were located. And this is the data that really drills in what we were hoping for, because this gives us an opportunity to actually identify the areas in Hermiston that are underserved, you know, that have adequate service that meets your expectations. We can look and see who has multiple service options versus no options at all. You know, we all made assumptions going into this. Well, this neighborhood. Now we actually have real data to use for that. And that's going to be a real benefit not only for the city of Hermiston, but the internet providers who are located in Hermiston. You know, this was designed to be a benefit to them as well. We want to be able to share all this information and data with them, so when they're looking at business cases, they can look at, see the satisfaction level, the speed level, the reliability, how other people are connected, and how it ties in if the city chooses to put in a connected city service ring. We looked at monthly spending. You know, how much is an average residential or business spending on internet? Between $60 and $80 a month. On the business side, over 20% of the businesses spend in excess of $200 a month. What are the priorities for broadband service? This one we really took a lot out of, and it's that reliability of service. You know, when you have conversations around the community, based on where you're located, the speed is one thing, but the reliability of service and the frustration related to having your internet service drop in and out, especially when you're doing business, doing remote school, doing telework, telehealth, that reliability really became apparent. And when you look at on the residential side, you know, the highest priority for people is that reliability, then comes speed, and then affordability to budget. And so this same data we can break out and look at where those locations are, that the frustration is higher, where we see more problems, but the darker green is less problems, the red is frequent frustration and problem. And so there's a lot of light yellow and some red in there sprinkled out. And those really coincide with some of the areas where they have limited options, 0 to 1 provider, and some of the more age technology. So with this demand for better broadband, a majority of the households would consider other options for broadband, while most businesses want better broadband immediately. So we asked them, you know, are you wanting something better now? Would you consider something better? You're happy with it, or have you not considered it? You know, on the left-hand side, the residential side, you know, that's 85% that are either willing to consider or want something better now. That's a key driver for a internet provider to come in and meet that need. You know, that's a high ability for uptake, and that's a motivation for those providers to come in and say, you know, if I brought a more reliable, higher speed, better quality service, are my uptick numbers going to emulate what the investment is? And this data shows that. Also, so getting into the likelihood of changing provider. So on the residential side, almost 75% said they would likely change their service provider. So if they can provide the actual service that meets their needs, there's a high willingness to change. So interest in better than current connectivity. You know, households with fiber broadband report the largest percentage of happy with it. And that's really the direction our city's going into, and that's the direction that we heard through this survey. Is it's not just, you know, 25 up and 3 down. It's not that FCC level of service of that bare minimum. The amount of use and the speeds required to do what they're trying to do within the households, it's leaning towards that fiber connectivity. And that's what it shows you. You know, people who have fiber are very happy. You know, people with DSL and satellite want something new. Cable's kind of in the middle on the residential side, but it really kind of reflects the haves and the have-nots of Hermiston. And that's what we saw in the early levels. You know, there's the haves, the areas with 5 different providers and the opportunity for fiber. And there's the have-nots that have limited wireless, limited connectivity, or no connectivity at all. And then on the business side, 80% use cable technology, and they want something better now. You know, the businesses that responded, they're ready for a change. They need higher speeds to conduct the type of business that they want to do. So when you look at any type of survey, you're curious how it actually represents the constituents of Hermiston. So on the right-hand side, respondent age profile versus population. The red is our demographics. The green is who actually filled out the survey. You know, the city of Hermiston, 1 in 4 households have school-age children. You know, when we looked at the household age, you know, the school age have some telehealth opportunities. And so for the most part, it was skewed a little slightly older than the population as a whole, but we really felt like we captured a good cross-section of the demographic. You know, one of the key drivers that Byron and I talked about from the beginning was, you know, the conversation with schools. You know, during the pandemic, we heard so much about the challenges that the schools had and the children had getting connected with multiple children in the house, all trying to do online learning at similar times. And we needed real data to support our assumptions. And we feel good about what we got out of this process. Then we looked at household income, education, and employment. 82% of the households reported earning more than $50,000 annually. That skews a little higher, but that's also indicative of the people who have the ability, the technology, and the access to do a survey like this. You know, if you don't have internet access at home, you're working multiple jobs, you know, the time to be able to go and spend 20 to 30 minutes filling out a survey can be really challenging. So we knew that going in, but this represents some of that. You know, 52% have college, university degree, and 68% were employed. So then we were curious, you know, how are people using this? You know, and generally a high level of computer skills across the younger age, you know, we knew that. More than 88% have been using broadband internet for at least 2 years. You know, I think the adoption in the community has been a lot longer than that duration. But we just really wanted to go and have that for the data. And part of this data was designed to capture. So if we look at going out and doing a business case, or looking out and doing grant requests, you know, looking for state or federal funding, working with broadband offices, having these type of things of showing the adoption and the abilities of your community, what the community wants, these are the key pieces of all those applications that this data then goes and translates into answering those questions for these applications. And then we actually, everybody who took the survey, we asked to measure their actual speeds. You know, when you purchase internet or purchase a monthly plan, you're told it's a certain speed. Well, in the fine print, it's up to that speed. It doesn't mean you're actually getting that speed. So 55% of the households had more than a 50 megabyte download speed. That's really good. But 31% had less than a 25. That's not good. It talks about the average speeds up there, but almost a third of the households don't even meet the FCC requirement for 25 down, 3 up standard. And that's the bare minimum requirement to be considered high-speed internet. And so that really was an indication that there is an unmet need in our community, and there's also a high level of interest if the services are available to our community, that there would be a high adoption rate. So it's really tied into 1, reliability, how reliable can you make my service, and then 2, how fast can you make my service. Multiple kids, multiple people, teleworking, all those things really tie into that equation. So this is the one that I think both Byron and I are really taking the most away from this whole process. You know, the red is poor. That is poor internet service. You know, we now have the ability to go into an internet provider and say, these are the areas, and you know, there's a lot of congregations of the red where we just do not have minimum level of high-speed internet connectivity right now. These are the areas, if you're going to invest, these should be your priorities as a internet provider. You know, and now we have the ability to show them this map, give them that data where they can plan and make long-term plans about the investments they make in this community. But we were really pleased to be able to get it at this level where we can actually drill down to each individual that did the survey. Yes,
Can I ask you a question? What is the justification for the size of the circle?
The justification, so the larger the circle, so the red is the lowest speed, the smaller the circle is the fastest speed.
Okay, I can figure that one out.
Okay?
So, but why make the difference between the low number and the high number so drastic? I mean, it makes it look a lot worse when I look at this map and all I see is red.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, there's probably a lot of little blue dots on here too, but I
Right.
can't hardly see them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Why is that disparity?
So one of the key reasons why we're going through this process is to identify the underserved areas in Hermiston and how we can create a roadmap and be most efficient with the available funds, the technology, the process in place. For us, understanding the underserved or not served is a higher priority to fill that, to create community equality. And so we really wanted to know the underserved or below average service. And that's where, if we're going to work with providers, most of the time those are in the places that have limited options. And so if we're going to invest or do a public-private partnership or invest a lot of time working and trying to recruit an end user, you know, we wanted to be able to show them this map and say, these are the areas with your highest ability or potential for success. And so that's why we made it. It was made drastic for a reason. It was made to stand out the areas that we want to focus on. Yes, Counselor. There are pockets, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was the question we had coming into this process. You know, the question was, what's the reality? We hear people happy, we hear people, no, it's fine. You know, we needed real data, and when we were able to actually go out and measure those speeds, it showed us where those locations and some of those more hot pockets are. Now, when you lay this over with the amount of providers available, those kind of start mirroring up. You lay it over some of the older subdivisions that don't have the ability to get in and run fiber, pole line fiber that requires a lot of trenching or the backyard poles or heavy expense to get the infrastructure there. It kind of shows up in there. So there's a reason why there's limited providers, is because they haven't been able to make a business case as of yet. Our hope going through this process was getting the data they need to make a business case. So it's data for us to see where the underserved areas in the community are, and two, how can we help recruit and incentivize with the data for them to be able to justify that business case. You know, when we go back and say 75% of customers are ready to switch if they had a more reliable, faster speed internet. I mean, that's very valuable for an internet provider that has a low uptake rate in the city. You know, and it's also a motivation for the cable company who's here saying, if I don't improve service, these people are vulnerable customers. You know, they're vulnerable to leave if I don't continue to increase and provide the service that they're asking for. And so that's the data that we then share with those companies, and then even companies that aren't in our community yet. Yeah, today. That's the case today, but our hope is that's not the case in the future. And this process hopefully can make a business case and a justification for them to say, you know, I haven't put a lot of money in Hermiston for a while, maybe it's time. If I reinvest in the city, you know, if I make that investment that I've been talking about for years, then there's a higher potential. I'm not guessing if I'll get an uptake. I'm seeing the data that this is the actual numbers and where those locations are. And that's our hope. Honestly, that's our hope.
Nate, I got another follow-up
Yeah, you
question.
bet.
But this photo is a little bit confounded as well, because people have choices sometimes in what they purchase, right?
Yep.
So maybe the red circle indicates that they only have 25 because that's all they've paid for. I mean, if you look at, say, the Highland Summit area, there's lots of red circles there. There's also some orange, and there's some pink, and there's some blue in there. So that means that there's probably a provider that's providing the blue and the pink and the orange.
Right.
These people just have chosen not to pay for it.
Yep.
So, I mean, if I was a provider, I'd come out and say, well, it's available.
Yep.
Maybe it's not affordable to some of those, and that's the selling point maybe. But it looks like there's service at a lot of these areas, and maybe some of these people just chose not to pay for it.
Yeah, I think as valuable as this slide is, it's the whole story.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sharing with you 36 slides tonight. You know, the amount of, we started at over 100 slides. And we narrowed it down, cut it down, and said, you know, we pushed some stuff together, and we did it because we wanted to have the conversation and kind of give you guys a high level so you guys could have a conversation about it. But the amount of data we have that goes into the deeper dive and into the weeds and things like that we're sharing with the people who can process that data, you know, that's the value of the effort that we went through. And we're sharing intentionally, you know, that higher level for the conversation. But we have the ability to do a deeper dive with any member on the council or any member in the community as well who's interested. Yes,
Mr.
Councilman.
Cronin,
I agree, and I tend to agree with the mayor. I would say also, though, on the flip side, I know that there's multiple neighborhoods that probably just have one provider, might be a national provider. I'd love for them to have a seat at the table if they want to join us, but at the same token, it kind of becomes hard for me to have a little sympathy for national providers if they're not willing to invest in infrastructure here. I do tend to have a little bit more sympathy for our local providers. I think that is a different story, but if national providers like CenturyLink or like Spectrum don't really want to step forward, especially with the evidence that's right before them, I think that's also a problem.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Counselor. And that's what, you know, we saw it in the housing market, you know, trying to recruit builders to our area. They can make money in Hermiston, but they can make more money in Prineville, Bend, other areas. And that's the same thing we've seen with internet providers. You know, they're still looking at the low-hanging fruit. We need to incentivize them with the data that says, okay, take another look at Hermiston. You know, take another look. This is actual real data from real people in Hermiston, what they're willing to do, what they're willing to pay, where are the areas where you can invest your money with the highest potential of uptake. And that's, you know, I completely agree with you. You know, that public-private partnership, local partnership, people who are here in our community, who invest in our community, who support the community, you know, that's always who we're rooting for. Mm-hmm.
So it seems like even though they may not be getting what they want or what they're paying for, they seem happy with what they've got. There's a few pockets of red there, but for the most part, they're happy, we feel it's fast enough, and
Where are you at? Where are you seeing?
So
which
we'll
slide are you
be
talking?
there, I think, in 3 slides. I think this one right here is talking about that satisfaction with connectivity. Yeah, that one. So it'll be the next slide.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize.
So what I'm wondering is that, because if we can go back to the, that one.
Yep.
So we have some individuals with different speeds and that sort of thing. Sometimes it's hard knowing, like, all right, we want to increase our speed, but we don't even know who's available and that kind of thing. Because, I mean, I'll be on, like, what's new in Hermiston, and then people are asking, hey, who's a good, service provider around here? Because, like, is there even a list around where it's like, here are the different service providers, here's who's good in what area? I mean, because we see a bunch of different dots, but we don't necessarily know who their service providers are, and so we don't, it's kind of hard sometimes to shop around, minus all the junk mail we get.
Yeah.
And so, if we know who is all at the table as far as, what the competition is, because sometimes it's not a matter of, we're happy with what we have. It's like, because we don't know who else is out there and that maybe we could do better.
Yeah.
Minus, like, again, whatever ad comes in the mail.
Yeah.
So is there a list somewhere that you're aware of that has, here's all of the games in town, and here's what is available and how to find it in your area?
So we have a list of all the providers in town because they're tied into franchise fees. So we have an understanding of who the franchisee, who possesses franchise fees in our community. As far as individual locations, what house, what apartment, where, no. That information is kept pretty secret. And I mean, you can go and yeah. Yeah. You can go to Charter, or you can go to, yeah. Mhm. And Counselor, I agree with what you're saying, because anybody who has a pole attachment on an HES or a UEC pole, we know what company, especially in the communication space, who's attached to each pole, where those locations are. Those are mappable, but we don't know if they provide service, if they're running, if it's a trunk line, if it's an artillery line. So there is that high level data. And I went back to the very beginning of my presentation, and this is what we looked at. So all those questions and all those red dots tie back into a technology. We can pull the data of who the technology is in the low service provider, because to start with, we know the dial-up, the DSLs, the fibers, the fixed wireless, the mobile wireless. We know with every one of those red dots what provider they have. So we have that. I wasn't planning on going that deep into the weeds. We talk about it a little more later in the higher level. But I think, if I'm not answering your question, let me know, but we do have the ability to tie those two things together. And on the data side, we can share with the providers who's causing the low service. Who's the area, so is it a DSL line, is it a fixed wireless, as tied to that red dot? What red dot is tied to what technology? We have the ability to do that now after this survey. Was that your question? Or Counselor?
Well, and to kind of like tie the whole thing together, And then this way, as people are making choices, as all of this is getting worked out, and we're trying to basically get people to improve their game as far as what investments they're making. If we're saying that, okay, well, here's all the providers in town, here's what they're offering, here's who's better in your area, then people might look at it and say, well, then I need to get better in their area because I want more customers, because I can see, that obviously, I'm the red dot, and you don't want to be the red dot.
Yeah, there's a really fine, well, it's not even a fine line. It's a Sharpie, thick marker about the line that data concerns and what information we're sharing. We're not going to share with anybody, individual answers. We're going to show areas and map those out because, through this process, all that data was protected, and we take great pride in ensuring that that information, but to be able to meet with providers and say these areas, these streets, this cross section, tying it into, the city's ring that we're looking at doing. We cross this intersection. If the city builds that infrastructure to connect the wastewater treatment plant, how many of those areas would you have potential access that you didn't have before, that it's a short run off of this fiber bundle to provide service, where you're not having to go from wherever you're at and run it an extra mile or an extra half mile. That's kind of that value that we looked at last time when we talked about what ancillary services can we provide. And that's the conversation that we're looking at here, is how can we leverage this data to encourage people to invest in our city, to create equality so everybody in the city has access to high-speed, reliable broadband service. Whether they choose to pay for it or not, that's their decision. Whether they have access to it or not is a role that the city has indicated that they're interested in understanding how they might be a part of that conversation. So it's not a guarantee that we're doing it, but we certainly want to have a plan to create that equity within the city and give people options. And take out that have or have not. Whether you choose to participate or not, that's an individual choice. But it's not like we're going to run a water line and not hook up a house. It's giving them a choice, and if they want water, they choose to sign up for water. And that might be a bad analogy, and so take that one back. But it's the concept that everybody within the city of Hermiston should have equal access to facilities, and if we can participate in that and they choose to participate in that, then we feel like we're being successful in our mission. It goes back to our mission statement, what we're here to do. And so that's kind of where Byron and I have approached this conversation. We've kind of gone back and forth with council and said, hey, are we going in the same direction? And it seems like we are. So that's how we proceeded. Councilor. So we are, yeah, you bet. Yeah. I really appreciate that question, because that's kind of that underlying question that we have to be real sensitive about. And Byron and I have understood, hey, we're talking about something that is private business versus, the municipality and the government. What role should we be playing in this conversation? So we've been real intentional to slow walk this and make sure that council is completely aware of what we're doing before we're doing it. We came to you each step of the way saying, hey, these are options you have. We want to make sure you're comfortable. So we're bringing the data back tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about some options that we want to do, but we haven't started on anything past this. You gave us, direction. We followed that direction and we stopped right there. And so tonight, I think if we have time, which I think we should, tonight is for that conversation of, where do you want us to be done tonight? Do you want us to look at a couple of different avenues? Where do you want us to focus our energy at? And hopefully at the end of this, it gives you a better understanding with the previous presentations about a potential direction.
How about we let Mr. Rivera get through the rest of this presentation and save our questions till the end, and hopefully we'll have enough time to answer all those.
I'm trying to, does anybody remember where I left
You-
off? Page 19? Okay, satisfaction. Okay. So impact on living locations. And this was an interesting for us. So despite the overall happiness in the community, we asked them first, how happy are you living in the community? What's, quality of life, those type of things. Relatively high, but over a third of the residents would consider relocating for broadband, for better options and higher speed. Higher incomes earners were slightly more likely to relocate, not necessarily outside of the city, but maybe in a potentially different part of the city. So when we looked at that, 22% definitely very likely, somewhat likely. By age group, looking at those, definitely to the very likely, and then based on household income. And so we found this data line, interesting. It's becoming one of those things where it's a decision maker or part of the decision or plays a part of the conversation when people are renting or purchasing. And so we found that fascinating. We wanted to throw that in there. Household utilization, how people are using the internet, communication side, recreation side. I think this kind of stuff is more just, looking at it later, but we all watch movies anymore, news and sports, TV programs, that type of stuff. Now looking at the business side. So when we looked at it, 54% of the organizations have fewer than 5 employees who filled this survey out. 14% do not have employees, the sole proprietorship. 48% of the people who responded to this operate a home business, and of those home businesses, 3/4 of them had employees. So when you look at what's important to them, over a third of the businesses consider broadband a very important or essential part of selecting their business locations. So when a business is coming in and looking to locate their business, it's essential for them or very important of where they locate, of the type of speed and the service they can get on internet. More than 2/3 of businesses consider broadband very important, essential in their business location. So the people are already there, it's still very important to them, and the people that are looking to locate a business, it's important to them. Measured speed, we looked at the measured speed of businesses. 40% were at that 50 megabyte plus, good, but 40% businesses have less than 25 download speed, and that's not good. So we were able to do that same data mapping. I didn't do a slide because you guys understood what we were doing there. So this kind of shows you on the business side what the average is for a business. And then there's still that businesses with an underserved, but still a high priority of wanting higher speed. Satisfaction with connectivity. Reliability is still the highest priority for service selection for most businesses. It goes back to that reliability and the frustration with not being able to count on your internet when you need it or the ability to do your work. 22% of the businesses had frequent reliability problems. 18% of businesses say their connection currently isn't fast enough. So most businesses are less than satisfied with their current connectivity. Online business practices, this is what they're primarily doing. Over 20% of the businesses plan to use the internet for advertising and promotion. 80% of the businesses currently have a website for their organization. So actively promoting their businesses, communicating about what their business offers, things like that. Additional findings. These were some of the slides that we felt might be of interest to council. So household benefit, convenience, communication, and cost savings were the most benefit reported from households. Many respondents utilization to increase their knowledge and skills. So, a lot of people are doing what I'm doing on a Saturday. I need to learn how to replace something in my refrigerator or thaw out my ice maker. I look on the internet, I watch a YouTube video, I learn how to fix it. A lot of people are now turning to the internet and those self-help type things. Not only that, taking an online course, watching city council on a Monday night. So The benefits from it, the knowledge and skills, the school learning, we knew that. Life-work balance, the ability to jump on the internet and work on a presentation on a Sunday afternoon while you're watching football versus having to come down to the office, to be ready for a Monday night presentation. It's those type of things that really make it convenient. Barriers to household internet usage, connection speed, reliability were the most inhibiting factors to online adoption. So we saw that earlier. This kind of breaks it down a little deeper. Privacy and security concerns, why aren't people using the internet more often? Not enough time, that awareness of internet benefits, lack of skills. So the people may have access, but they're just not using it as much as they may want to. Getting households online. Of those interested in doing more online, the online learning resources is the most viable way to increase adoption. And this is something that could be shared with our local community college, the high school, people who are looking to do some secondary education type stuff, offering those type of online resource classes, basic internet, basic banking, telehealth, things like that. There is a market for that if schools are interested in providing that education. If the community college is interested in doing a senior night where they teach people more use of computers and broadband and how to access the internet and how to use the internet and the value that's created with that. Teleworking. So 15% of the people who participated in this survey currently telework. And we really found that fascinating. It was a high adoption rate, a quick adoption rate, but 126 out of the 800 use it. And it goes into the lifestyle benefit, more family time. So you motivate you to telework. Why are you doing it? To get an understanding of that work-life balance, everything down to cost savings, some environmental benefit, things like that. Remote work from home, accessing the workplace was a challenge there for a while. So we saw still at the end of the pandemic, this was January that we were doing the survey starting out. There was some influence on that. Days per week, how often are people teleworking? Are they working every day from home? Are they working multiple days, a couple of days? Where are they working from? How far away? 22% are working a job 100 plus miles away. They're living in the community and have a job in a different location. So that was really interesting to us about how far people were actually working from. You hear about people relocating to locations because they aren't tied to an office anymore. Was that the reality with the people choosing to telework in Hermiston? And we saw that to be true as well. Teleworkers are averaging a significantly higher income, and about a quarter of the teleworkers do so for 5 days a week. So when you look at the household income and education, how much have been using the internet increased your annual household? This ties back to household and business. The more they use it, they saw a higher income potential and ability. 37% of the respondents are earning additional income online. Families with school-age children consider broadband highly significant for learning. So that was a large portion of the survey. And I think we knew that, but it's nice to get that data where we can actually put that information down on a piece of paper and say, yes, there is value here. This is the connection. This is why the investment makes sense for people to make. Telehealth utilization. So, how many people are using it right now? So a majority of the respondents are willing to explore telehealth services. That's encouraging for the hospital. If we have a conversation with the hospital or telehealth providers, this is the kind of information that we can share with them. The willingness to try it or use it was really high. There was some interest in some emergency call systems. So that ties back into city services. Health, research, and education, that remote consultations. So that's the data. There's a lot of data there that you guys have, and I'm sure if you guys are interested to go through and actually look at some of the slide information, like I said, well over 100 slides of more information if anybody's interested in taking a deep dive. But, the value that, and I don't want to speak for Byron, but the value that we saw going down this process was how could it help us have conversations in the future and moving forward. If we look as a city, to make an investment, you know, we understand the approximate cost now. We understand what it would cost just for the city to connect city facilities. We know what it's going to cost us and how much it's going to pay for itself and how much it won't pay for itself. It will be a higher burden if we just connect our own city facilities. But now we have the ability to have a little bit of a deeper conversation and look at some of those ancillary benefits. You know, I don't think we have a recommendation of saying this is the next step and path that we're recommending tonight, but I think the idea was for us to show you the data, show you what we've been working on, bring it back to you and see the interest and the process we went through and really open it up for a conversation for you and for council and you, Mr. Mayor. Byron, did you have anything you wanted?
So one of the questions that I have is, you know, what are your thoughts about sharing this information? And do you feel confident enough in sharing this information with service providers?
From the beginning, that was our commitment. You know, the service providers we met with, we had multiple meetings with service providers, and we said, you know, the idea is at the end of the day to share this with you and help you have a better understanding of Hermiston. So we feel very confident. It's statistically relevant. You know, you have to get to a certain point for the statistics to make sense. We're a little low on the business side. You know, I think we have less confidence in that, the business case, but as far as the residents of Hermiston, I think we're very confident to be able to share this and feel like it's accurate data that they could make a business case off of.
So is that the next step? I mean, what's the plan? Have you guys talked through that?
Yeah, so
Do you need
when
some direction from us?
When we had the conversations with the internet service providers, both local, regional, and national, that was a commitment we made to them. We talked to you guys about that last time is, hey, do you want us to go out and explore these conversations? When we explored these conversations, you know, we wanted to be completely transparent with them, and we wanted to make sure that they understood everything we were doing and the steps we were taking. And part of that conversation, to be transparent, was saying at the end of the day, you're getting all the data. You can choose to take it or not, but you're going to have access to it because we are looking for partnerships. We're looking for people who want to invest in the community. And so that was the commitment that we already made based on previous feedback.
So, but our commitment to ourselves was we want to improve or enhance internet accessibility amongst our facilities. And so in doing so, how do we partner or bring along other partners in that process and the allocation of the funds that we choose to distribute to this cause?
So I think the next potential step to go down is to look at our model of connecting city facilities and then talk with internet providers and say, if we got you closer, would it make more sense to do a business case for you? Could you tie off, would you be interested in tying into our system, getting you this closer to the areas that are most interested in having more reliability, better service, faster service? Is that a conversation you're interested in having? Do we want to do a deeper dive on, you know, that public-private, you know, maybe they're not interested in that. You know, no one's told us yes and no one's told us no. They just said, well, we're waiting to see the data.
Another option that I've thought about recently is taking the data and then putting some sort of a request for partnership or something that, you know, that says, here's what we want to try to do with our facilities, and then see if we can have some discussions based on this data. How does this, you know, kind of fit in with your business model, your business planning? And what can we do from building a partnership in that way? I mean, it's really kind of just a variation of what Nate was talking about, but I think something like that would get probably most of the providers at least to the table for a first discussion.
And another part of the conversation, and I'm sure you guys have seen the emails, is federal funding starting to come out for connectivity. The state broadband office is propping up their programs right now. They're looking to get a better understanding of what people are interested in. now we have all the pieces of the puzzle to fill out those applications with real data, real numbers, real feedback. And so would we looking to do a grant or look at funding to connect city facilities, and then if we go to providers and say, this is what we're looking to do, this is what if we get here, are you interested? And the more people are interested, the higher you can score on these applications as well. And so, you know, it's a little bit chicken or the egg. You know, do we make that commitment to connect our facilities with the hope that if we're close to some of these underserved areas, that a provider may come in and take off service from that because it's lowered their entry point, which may have been a barrier. Primarily, we heard on the conversations we had with the providers is, you know, the cost barrier to get into some of these older neighborhoods, the trenching cost, the backyard cost, you know, things like that has been their primary detractor of why they haven't made that investment here. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a business decision on their end, and it's going to be a business decision on your end. Do you want us to look at these grants? Do you want us to start that process of connecting city facilities with an idea of promoting and sharing this information with providers of potential partnerships?
So Peterson, maybe hand first.
I think with the rate that Hermiston is growing, if we don't start this now at the size we're at, we are going to regret it later when we're bigger than we are. And we're going to regret that we hadn't done it now, because it's a lot harder to get the chicken back in the shell when it's a turkey, if you get the meaning. Okay. I'll let you figure out the math on that one.
Well, I appreciate
Councilor
that.
Myers.
Would your plan be first to try to look into grants or go and try and talk to partners? Would having partners help you get grant money, I guess?
I think the purpose of tonight is to hear your feedback based on the data that we collected. Based on that feedback, Byron and I are then going to go back and create a plan to bring to you again and say, these are the paths that we think are reasonable and realistic. It sounds like based on what you guys have talked about, both those two plans are plans that we would look at exploring deeper.
Oh, okay.
Is that,
I mean,
did
so
I hear it wrong?
we don't know which is the best yet.
Okay.
I mean, that's what,
Yeah.
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think we've made a commitment. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I think we've made a commitment as a priority to provide service to our facilities at a higher rate so that we can stay a 21st century city and continue to provide the services that our constituents expect. So I think that is at least a minimum of what we've committed to. And if we can bring partners along in that process, I think that's a bonus to our constituent members as well. So I think this is data that's important and valuable, and I think we should be sharing it and seeing if there are people out there willing to partner with us on it. But I think as far as moving forward, it's my understanding that we want to proceed with, you know, updating our internet to our current city facilities.
Yes.
I mean, that's good.
Yes.
That's good feedback from our standpoint. I mean, I think that would be a part of any of these other discussions that we're talking about having. And so, I mean, we can put some energy into probably a better design and then look at how that fits into how we have conversations. So, but I think like Nate said, let us take this and come up with a couple of scenarios that you know, even what we would recommend as far as that goes. But
And Mr.
couple
Mayor,
of
I really
scenarios.
appreciate it as well, because that has been the clearest direction that we've received. I mean, that's a direction for us. And
I think you saw everybody's head here nodding.
that's why I appreciate
Yes.
the clear direction. And so, maybe not everybody's.
He was kind of. Councilor Brown?
No
I thought you
further
had.
comment.
Councilor Duran, did you have?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? I appreciate all the information. It's a little overwhelming. You know, I'll have to go home and look at it again. It's very in-depth. The one thing you didn't touch on was how we compared to the other cities. And is this kind of normal for a city of our size and our demographics?
We got into that data, but once you start putting that additional layer on all the data that we already were showing you tonight, we just felt like it was going to be too much. We have that data to go back on. The preliminary stuff was, you know, a lot of cities our size. The cities who have been our size for a while, completely different. The cities who are growing are experiencing the same struggle. You know, the cities that have been 20,000 for 30 years, they have the infrastructure in place. The cities that, you know, were 10,000 20 years ago and now they're getting in that 15 to 25,000 are cutting their teeth on the same problems. And so it's been interesting. Like I said, anybody who's interested in the data, you know, let me know and we can get you all the slides and do a deep dive.
But it is all statistically relevant, and yeah, it's been vetted by an organization, not ourselves. It's a professional organization. That's what they do for a living. So we're providing some pretty valuable information for free to potential business partners out there. And so I think it's all good news. I'm super excited to see this data and that we went that deep, and we got over 800, you know, household participants and 70 business participants. So it's excellent information. So any other comments? All right. Thank you, Mr. Rivera, for the presentation this evening.
Yep.
Let's make a quick recess before we start our regular city council meeting, and we'll start that at 7:03. I'm going to call the Hermiston City Council Hermiston City Council meeting to order. Regular City Council meeting to order. If you're just now joining us, we had a work session earlier where we talked about some broadband survey results that we went through this last year. The city is studying expansion of broadband to our city facilities and how that connectivity could benefit other members of our community, including households and businesses. And so we're surveying our community to see how their current service is and if there's any interest in new services. So that was our conversation earlier that if you just walked in, we were having. We have a declaration of a quorum. We're going to excuse Councilor Primer and Councilor Davis this evening. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lily always likes to surprise me on where the flag's located, so. All right. We have a couple proclamations and presentations this evening. We're going to start with Mr. Bacon from the Hermiston School District. Welcome. School's up and running.
It's going.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks.
Kids in person, got to be excited.
Yeah, it's the it is the closest to normal that we will probably see for a while. So it's a great place to be right now. Just throwing out some information, construction. Since my last time of being here, we've been able to have the ribbon cutting to our two new buildings at Loma Vista and Rocky Heights, and those went well, very well attended. One of the events at Loma Vista was partnered up with Open House that same evening, and which was wonderful because it just brought an opportunity for more folks to be a part of the process. So that was really nice. Construction at the high school is moving right along. It's fun driving by and seeing a big crane sticking up out of the middle of town as you're driving through there. And last time I was here, one of the questions was asked about how it was impacting parking. And so I went back and double checked on it so I could make sure and provide accurate. And so we ended up in the process reducing approximately 20 parking spots as a result of the construction process and putting the fence up around there out of the high school area. And then with that, Principal Tom Spoo reassigned staffing, or staff park, trying to move all the staff parking back to that back area to provide more spots for kids. So just a little bit of follow-up from the last time I was here visiting with everybody. Athletics, they're going strong even despite all the wonderful air quality that we have out here right now. And just informational, so air quality, the OSAA, which is what we are governed during our daily practices and whatnot, if anything is above 150 or higher, we're to cancel outside activities at that point. We haven't reached that point today, this afternoon, evening, right before I was coming in here, I think we were at 134, which is bumped up since earlier today when we were down to about 121. So it's something that we're monitoring and we watch very closely as we're going through. Tri-Cities, they've adopted a different, so if it gets over 101, I believe it is, they will cancel outside events. And so that was a result of our JV football game today that was supposed to travel across the bridge, and so they will reschedule that event. So that's air quality as we know it today. We have about over 300 kids in the high school participating in fall activities, which is right in line with what we saw coming out of the gates last year, the excitement of being out of COVID and kids getting involved. So we've been able to maintain the number of kids participating, which again, the more kids that we have involved, the better. New this year, we are adding boys and girls soccer to the middle school, and that is beginning this fall. So practices are going right now. Games should be starting I think it's this Thursday, events will start happening, and that's pretty neat. Followed by that, this spring, softball and baseball will also be added at the middle school level. So again, providing more opportunities for kids, building programs at the high school level is always a positive thing. Friday,
Is that just for 7th and 8th graders, or
It
is that
is.
for all classes?
it'll be 7th and 8th grade. Yep. And then this Friday is, let's see, Bulldog Spirit Day, which is always a fun and exciting day. That's an opportunity for the high school kids to get on the bus. They split them up, travel to the elementary schools and the middle schools. They go in, the high school kids talk to the kids about being involved in activities at the high school level and just get them excited about it. So everybody's supposed to wear Bulldog gear. So if you want to get involved in it, please throw some Bulldog gear on, and we'll have a football game that evening. And that, just real fast, is kind of what we have going on. One question I have for you guys is if there are particular topics that you would like to hear about, because really I'm just pulling this stuff out of the air. I'm like, oh, maybe they'll like to know this. But if I could be more intentional with the topics that I bring here, please let me know. I'd be happy to be more specific that way.
We were hoping you were going to talk about dress code this evening.
Well, dress code. Well, I was waiting. That's why I didn't talk about it, because I just wanted to see if you would go. So dress code's a topic in Hermiston right now.
Yeah.
If you guys
and
have
you can
seen,
keep it to yourself.
I don't know.
Okay, I didn't mean to bring it up.
Yeah.
How about student numbers? Where you
Student
at?
numbers were up from last year, which is a great thing. And right now, to explain our process, we have what's called the whites of the eyes. So after 10 days, if a student has not been in school, hasn't made it to a single class at the secondary level, or either been in the morning or afternoon session at the elementary school, after 10 days in the state of Oregon, those students are dropped and removed from the rosters. So if they are on our list, they stay on there. So our numbers aren't true as of this moment today, but we do have some estimated numbers to give you just a little bit. Thanks for the heads up, so I dialed in a little more specific on those. But our class sizes at the elementary right now, with the addition of Loma Vista, has allowed it to, we range anywhere from 17 students per class to 28 as our highest. And those are pockets with a 28. I think we only have one, maybe two classrooms that are seeing numbers like that. Most of them are right in that 25 range or less, which is a wonderful thing to have going forward. Our totals, we're looking at right around 2,400 elementary students, a little over 1,300 middle school students, and then what we have on the books is a little over 1,800 high school students, which would be phenomenal. I don't think we're quite at these numbers that we're seeing right now until after this whites of the eyes come through. So my estimate is we'll range in that 5,500 to 5,600 students district-wide.
And that's up this year from last year?
A little bit, yeah. And I don't remember the exact number from last year, but
Are we getting more of the kids that maybe chose to stay home last year, wanted to do some online just because they still weren't sure about COVID, and some of those kids coming back?
yeah, we are seeing more of that, especially at the high school level. We're seeing more there. One point of interest is that our kindergarten and our first grade levels are the ones that are the lowest. And that typically can be, well, our estimate is that that's the age range where families feel like they can provide that information, that learning at home without a whole lot of a heavy lift. And so that's why we're seeing fewer numbers potentially at those grade levels.
Gotcha. Other questions from the council? Yes, Mr. On?
Are you able to speak a little bit more about the Think Big Space?
I can a little bit. So the Think Big Space is a partnership that we've had with Amazon. I'm going to be able to go on my first tour later this week. So poor timing on that part. Sorry about that. And it is a space where Amazon has, and I can't remember the dollar amount off the top of my head, but in partnership with Blue Mountain Community College, we have the space up there that we're able to use for classrooms, and we have our high school kids going up and attending class every day. But along with that too, we also have a portion of it set aside where our elementary students are going to be able to rotate every grade level twice throughout the school year and go up into what's called this Think Big space. And what they do in the area, I haven't been able to observe one yet, but they provide a problem for the students, and then the kids get to create. And so it's a true environment of really allowing kids to use their imagination, work on problem-solving skills, and be able to have some access to technology that they wouldn't normally see. And so every grade level we'll be able to rotate through twice, except for our 5th graders. They're going to rotate through once, and that is because of their trip to outdoor school, which is taking place starting next week.
And the high school students can get credit by going up there through?
Yes, yep. So we're housing a classroom out of there. John Fisher is teacher, and so he has taught CAD, computer-aided design in the past, and now he's going up there and working with a new curriculum with the Think Big Space area and equipment.
Cool partnership. Modulars, are they still being used in the district?
We do at Desert View, especially. We still have folks out in those modulars there. Highland Hills they're using one of the modulars, which has 2 classrooms in it. The oldest ones will be moved out at that point.
I heard a rumor there's like 2 kids that are being bussed into Highland. Everybody else is within walking distance.
Well,
that's pretty
that
awesome.
is very accurate, actually. I think there's 3 now.
3?
But so yeah, and the goal, which is really cool, because through those processes of, it was really, we wanted to make Highland Hills that neighborhood school, and that was the goal, full intentions. But in the back of your mind, you're always wondering, how close to that are we really going to be able to become? And I'll be darned, when we started school, last week, we had 1 kid signed up to be on the bus. And as the weeks progressed, we're up to 3.
Yeah,
so
very cool.
It was able to happen.
Other questions from the council? Congratulations on getting the school year off and started, and look forward to great things from Hermiston School District.
Well, thank you. I'm going to head back to the board meeting and talk a little bit about dress code.
Right. I'm sure you'd rather be here. Thank you, Mr. Bacon. All right. I see Kimberly Lindsay out there from Community Counseling Solutions. Welcome. She's here to give us another update. Is this our 6-month update? 1-year update. Oh, my goodness, already? Welcome back. Must be doing okay because you got welcomed back. Yeah.
Can you hear me better now? Okay. All right, so Kimberly Lindsay, Director of Community Counseling Solutions. It has been a year since we began to provide the addictions services in Umatilla County, and it'll be a year starting December when we began to provide the mental health services. I was here a year ago and you said you'd like an update, so here I am. It has been a busy year. I have a number of things to talk about, but I put together 3 documents that would just give you a bit of a glimpse into some of the work that we have been doing. So the first page, I went around and I handed out this handout. First page. I asked the staff to pull some numbers. This is for mental health work. Total number of mental health assessments that were conducted during a 10-month period last year before CCS took over, and there were 600 on the dot. After CCS took over, it's a 9-month period. There were roughly 1,100 assessments that were done during that period. So if you average that out, it's about 60 per month that were occurring last year and about 122 per month that are occurring this year. So the average number of assessments has doubled. The total increase is about 82%.
What is an assessment? Can you define that?
Yeah, so somebody that comes in, let's say a kiddo, since I'm following the schools and they're struggling a little bit with anxiety, we need to do what's called a biopsychosocial assessment to see what's driving that anxiety and what the appropriate course of treatment would be. So if there's abuse that's going on, that can generate anxiety for kids, or discord in the home of any kind, or social pressures, or sometimes it just can be just more of a biological manifestation and wanting to treat appropriately. So we do the assessment.
This is initial evaluation.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So it has been busy. It's been busy. Some of this you probably have some people that weren't coming in for services because of COVID. You had some folks that weren't coming in due to the transition, maybe some other reasons there. This combined with staff shortages, so in the behavioral health industry, and in many industries, we're struggling to find people to do the work. So a lot of people coming in for services, a lot of vacant positions. We might have a little bit of stress and anxiety ourselves, but pleased that the staff are hanging in there doing a nice job. We are booked out for assessments. So there was an article in the East Oregonian that talked about how far out it is. We are doing triages. So if somebody is in need of urgent or emergent services, they are receiving those. But if they're not, the time for an assessment is several months out. That is dropping, so that's good as we're getting these positions filled, but it's less than ideal right now. But the demand has doubled. So very candid, not going to mince words, and just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. You want me to keep going?
Explain the demand has doubled. You're talking year over year. That people are coming to have an assessment done, mm-hmm. or being referred for an assessment, mm-hmm. that weren't the year before.
Correct.
Why? I mean, where are they coming from? Is it lack of trust in the previous relationship? There's more confidence now? Or, our population hasn't doubled. Or is there more stress in our environment? Or why is it doubled?
So I would say yes, probably to the two reasons that you did provide. I would say that people delayed care due to COVID. We saw that in healthcare. Mm-hmm. So that would account for some of it. And then I think just we just live in a time of a lot of anxiety. Yeah. I talk generally about anxiety, but we're struggling.
Is this a standard that you're seeing across the state, across the nation?
So across the nation, there's about a 25% uptick. Oregon's seen about a 35% uptake. We're seeing a double. Wow. So that's why I think there's some other factors that are going on, right. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Did you, yes, Councilor Bro?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you for being here, Director. I did have a question about your assessments. Does that include a reassessment, or are these brand new initial assessments?
These are brand new initial assessments. People do get reassessed depending upon their age. So kids are really we're reassessing often, but a formal full assessment, 6 months for kids and 1 year for adults. But this does not include reassessments. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I wondered because I know that still takes time, and a regular assessment is more than just an individual session with a client, and so then I can imagine the numbers being higher for just assessments overall.
Yeah.
It is pretty overwhelming.
It's a high number.
And if I could add to that, I work in an adjacent field. I work in disability services at the collegiate level. This reflects exactly what I'm seeing in my office and across my field in post-secondary education and the individuals that we have coming in. So, which are the same individuals that you see. So, it's reflective not just of the Hermiston population, but just the stage was set and things were exacerbated. So it's, I understand the getting, it's like, all right, we got this, but we're all getting kind of crispy ourselves. Yeah, we got this, but yeah.
The next document is just a peek into how customers are feeling. So at the end of every quarter, the last 2 weeks, we ask the folks that are coming in for services if they'd like to participate in a voluntary survey, entirely voluntary. The second page is how folks are feeling about their mental health services. Third page is addictions. So, you know, overall, there's a lot of, well, there's some neutral, a lot of agree, and a lot of strongly agree. On the mental health side, it looks like there was somewhere between 1 and 3 people who were not happy with services, but overall the numbers are favorable. So I generally feel like if people are really happy or really unhappy, they participate in services. It's not a gold standard, but I think that this survey is representative of the feelings that are out there. I get a lot more comments saying thank you than I do complaints. So I think for County Umatilla, for Umatilla County size, I don't know what the magic number would be, but we're averaging about 3 complaints per quarter for services. So it's not that bad. The last item is an initiative, the Zero Suicide Initiative. CCS has a lot of initiatives that we're working on. And I just thought I'd pick one so that you could see what an important initiative is to us. And I won't go through this slide deck one by one, but zero suicide, the word zero is aspirational, I understand that, but is one suicide okay? And if that's if somebody that you don't know, maybe, probably not, but what if that's your mom, dad, brother, sister, son, daughter? It's not okay. So I can't say that one is okay. So we strive for zero. We know that there's a lot of people that fall through the cracks in healthcare, and the first several pages identify where some of those cracks are. 4th page talks about suicide facts in Oregon, and the reason why it's important, not just from a personal perspective or you know, what's going on in your community, but the costs that happen across the board. It is preventable, and it should be a core part of every healthcare system's work. That's my bias. I didn't number these pages, but towards the end, there are 7 elements of suicide, of zero suicide. We have a zero suicide leadership team. We meet every other month. We have a zero suicide coordinator, very excited for the work that they do. We rate ourselves every 6 months across those 7 domains. And if you skip to the second to last page, you'll see the work that we have been doing internally. We joined the Zero Suicide Movement in 2019. That light blue line represents our scores, and you can see where we're at now in 2021. We'll be evaluating our work in November. I could talk a lot about that, but I have a couple of other things that I wanted to touch on. So unless there are any questions, just talks about some of the work that we have been doing. So we continue to be appreciative of the work that we're doing with the Hermiston Police Department. Byron and Travis and crew have been great to work with. So Jason, thank you for all of the support that you've given us. Your officers are great. They've been patient with us. Not that we're perfect, because we're not, but we are hoping to do a good job when we're responding to crisis out in the community. There are some funds that were approved this last short session at the legislature. Umatilla County received about $3.3 million to purchase housing for people who have behavioral health issues who are at risk of needing higher levels of care. So our population really struggles to get housing, more so than the average individual, and I understand that housing is an issue across the board, so I'm not trying to say that it's easy, but an individual with a behavioral health issue is going to struggle a little bit more. So this is dedicated funding. We are looking at purchasing some homes. There's 2 homes that are currently being used for foster care that are up for sale. People just wanted to retire, fancy that. And so we're probably going to be purchasing those homes. Those homes will not, they'll be doing the same thing that they already have been doing, but we will be keeping those beds so that those individuals will not be out on the street or needing to move away from their friends or family. Then we will look at other opportunities. I went to your Hispanic advisory board and happened to follow on the heels of a classmate of mine. So I think you were at that, Roy. I've since connected with them. They're with Oxford House. We have a house that we have found that we think would be good in Hermiston. Our goal is to purchase that home and to contract or lease with Oxford Homes so that Hermiston will have an Oxford House, which you don't have, which is amazing. Pendleton has 3. I think Hermiston should have at least 1. What an Oxford House is, yes. So Oxford Houses International is an organization that is dedicated to providing alcohol and drug-free housing to individuals who are new in recovery. If you get out of a residential treatment facility, it's often not in your best interest to go back to your home or to your environment because there might have been alcohol and drug use that was occurring there. So they need a safe, clean place to go. When you first move in, you do not have to have a job, but you will be asked to leave or told to leave if you don't have a job within 30 days. We all know that having a purpose, a reason to get up in the morning is really important for our overall health, definitely for mine. Certainly for those. So the employment keeps them busy. They're required to attend a certain number of AA or NA meetings per week. They're required to do generally some community service, participate in house meetings. They can stay as long as they want, but most of the time folks are there for about a year. So, does that answer questions? Yep. Okay. We've been enjoying our work with Stepping Stones. I know that you're familiar with that project, so continue to partner with them on some of the work that they have been doing. Kathy, Lloyd, and Chris, I hope I have their energy when I'm a little bit older. Aspen Springs, acute care facility by the hospital. It closed. I won't go into the history of that. Representative Smith found some money for us in this last legislative session that allowed us to purchase that building. So that's exciting. We own that as of September 1st.
Nice.
We are, we put in for an RFP to remodel it. We will remodel it whether we receive the RFP or not. Of course, we would like, though, to not include those costs in our monthly operating expenses. We will reopen at the end of the remodel to again provide acute care in Eastern Oregon and in Hermiston. Obviously, it's 16 beds right now. We don't need 16 acute care beds. That was some of the issue for it. It was a little overbuilt. So we're going to take the 6 of those 10 beds and use those for civil commitment beds, which will help the base operating costs each month because that's consistent funding. Kids program, there's no subacute or psych res for kids in Eastern Oregon. The closest that that we have available to us is in the Portland area. CCS purchased land about 3 years ago. We paused the building because of COVID and the difficulty in finding employees. We decided to restart that. So we expect to break ground. That's in Boardman later this year, and that will be a nice addition in the continuum of care for our youngsters. It's designed for the what I call the littles, so 12 and under. Those are the ones that I find to pull at my heart the most when they're spending days on end in hospitals, unnecessarily so, or hotel rooms. And that's not to say that I'm not sympathetic to a 14 or a 15-year-old, but shipping our kids that are that age out of state or keeping them at those levels of care is just not okay. I think that's a good place to pause. I have like 4 or 5 other things, and I just don't want to lose your attention. I'd like for you to invite me back next year. So there's other things that I could discuss. Mobile crisis, you know, big article just came out today, press release on Oregon being a state that's adopted that and moving forward. Just, you know, I could really enjoy the relationship that we have with the schools, with Dan Greenbaum, meet with them regularly. I think that partnerships came a long ways, and see, here I go down that path. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, criticisms?
You know, it's just wonderful to have you back.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you in our community for a year. I can't believe it's been a year already. And I hear nothing but raving reviews of the transition and what you've been able to do and what you've been able to accomplish. And we're just so appreciative of all the hard work. Not sure how you do it all. I don't know that you sleep very much, but we really appreciate you and everything CCS is doing for our community, you know, and those people, individuals that are struggling. We needed that. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's an honor.
Councilor Brown.
If I may, there's certainly a lot of different factors to attribute the jump from last year to this year, but I'd have to say I believe the community is excited to have you here, and I think having a renewed trust in our mental health systems here is probably maybe a reason for the uptick. So it could be a good or a bad thing, but judging by this, it seems like people are trusting the care that you guys are providing and going for that. So please thank all the clinicians, everybody that you have on your staff. It is really hard work, especially assessments, really hard things to do, and so I really appreciate them as well.
Thank you. I will carry that back to them. There's a meeting, all staff meeting on Wednesday, so I will pop in and share that. That's great.
Councilor Drum.
I'm excited to hear the information and what you've been able to accomplish in less than a year. So it looks like, you know, you've turned the ship around. Certainly you've made a lot of connections with our community partners, and that, of course, has only benefited our community members. So I'm very thankful for the job that you guys are doing, and I know that you have bilingual staff on board, but that's also a certain need, you know, that we have, and we've had it for years, and I don't know that, you know, how we will be able to overcome that, but I'm hoping that because of the great report that you have, and because, you know, you're turning the image that mental health in people's minds in our area, and so I hope that we're able to attract more clinicians to our area so that we can continue to better serve our community, because even though you guys have done an amazing job, I feel like there's still a greater need out there that we are still not reaching. And so mental health, I think, and because of COVID and so many reasons has only risen because there's a lot of need that we probably weren't aware of. But now that it's okay to talk about it, I think more people are coming to seek help than before. So thank you for doing an excellent job and for keeping, students and the community as a whole in mind when making these kinds of decisions. I'm excited to hear how, about the facility that you're going to build in Boardman, even though it will be out of our county, but, I'm sure that other communities should benefit from the work that you guys are doing as well.
Thank you, Counselor. And I just, I completely agree with you around the need for bilingual counselors. I mean, I was going to say counselors, but just the workforce, counselors, peer support workers, skills trainers, people who work at the front desk, billers, so that when folks call, we're able to communicate with them well. We did start a program this last year. Well, start a program, expand a program. CCS is paid for 75% of the cost of tuition for people who are working for us, getting their master's degree. We expanded that to 100%, and then we also expanded a certain number of slots to people that are getting their bachelor's degree. So currently we have about 7 people in Umatilla County that we're paying for that for. And there's funds from the legislature that's coming. We could choose how to direct those funds. We chose to put it into education, hopefully for reasons that I don't need to discuss a lot. And so I guess I just wanted to state that and piggyback onto your comment. If you know people who are interested in going into the field, we can pay for it. We want to pay for it, and especially for the Hispanic population, we need them badly, desperately. And so if anybody has questions on that, or you are talking to a youth and they're interested in pursuing a career, give them my phone number. I would like to visit with them.
Mr. Peterson.
So just a few quick things. One, Oxford House, that is awesome. Two, being able to keep it local and having the youth facility so close. That way, if parents are in Hermiston, they can go and visit their kid as opposed to the closest thing being miles away, because as if you can keep the family together, then the healing's going to happen quicker. So again, phenomenal. Are you guys doing any sort of telehealth or anything like that? Are you? So I'm all right, cool. And also, as far as looking for clinicians and employees and stuff, have you spoken directly to the colleges and the programs and recruited directly from them? Because at least in the places where I've worked, they've had literally hanging up in the classrooms, an actual where you can tape the job description on the marker board. So it's hey, as soon as you graduate, you got a job.
Yeah.
And those get swiped up pretty fast. So just kind of putting that out there. But otherwise, well done. And if you're saying you don't have enough energy, well, that's because you've used it all. and you've used it well, and we are greatly appreciative to all of you.
Not to say that we couldn't do more. We do have partnerships with Walla Walla, Eastern, and I think is it U of W and Kennewick, or is it WSU? So HR does that. I haven't seen the results from that I'd like to see. I think we've had maybe one person every other year, but we continue to work at it. We did a $10,000 hiring bonus, and candidly, that has generated a lot of results. Yeah, so that's been helpful.
Councilor Spicer-Coon.
Hi, Phil.
Hello. I guess everybody's been so stellar and congratulatory. I guess
I want to
I'll
make
be a
sure I
little
get
bit
all the
more
compliments into the staff.
downer, I guess. In my realm of work, I work with a lot of children who are in really horrible situations through the dependency. And one thing that I've noticed, though, recently, and this has been since the change, is a lot of those children are seeing very long waits before they can get any kind of services. I mean, some of the kids I represent are looking 6 to 8 months before they're getting an assessment. So I don't know how you guys are determining priority. It seems to me that those kids should be fairly high priority. And then sometimes after they're getting assessments, it's another 4 to 5 months until they're finally getting in to see a counselor. It's just a concern that I have. And so from the perspective that I've seen and from what I've heard from the courts, at least in those situations, they don't really feel like these kids' needs are being met very well. I don't know how much that is the referrals getting from DHS over to you guys, or there's just not enough service providers in the area. But it is something that, at least from my profession, that I'd like to see worked on and focused
Absolutely.
on.
There's I guess for lack of a better word, like a rubric that we use when folks come in when we do the triage. And depending upon what they say, that's going to determine generally where they go. That's not to say that there isn't room for clinician interpretation or overlay on top of that. So that just speaks to the triage process. 6 to 8 months, that seems a little bit longer for me, so I'd like to follow up with you on that. Because last I checked, we weren't out that far. We had been out, but we're not out quite that far. So, it could be that we missed some kids, or they didn't come off the wait list, or several things. So I don't know that you're able to give me any of the kids' names, but if they sign a release, if I could send you a release, and if they're willing to sign it, I'm willing to personally go and look and see where they're at and what we can do to get them in sooner. So.
Okay. I would have to talk with the department.
I'll follow
about
up
that
with you
first, but
on that, yeah. Okay.
It's election season. All of our gubernatorial candidates have promised more resources for mental health. Do you think that's what's preventing us from hiring mental health providers in Eastern Oregon? Do you think it's the money? I mean, obviously
No,
the $10,000
I almost
incentive.
don't want any more money.
What's that?
The
Yeah.
$10,000 is nice.
Right.
So I interrupted. Go ahead.
So, I mean, are you in communication with these folks and saying, hey, this is what I really need? This is what you could really support me with? Because it seems like, we all have this challenge with hiring people currently, and professionals to rural parts of our state are a unique challenge. But is it that our providers are underpaid, or do you feel like there's some other reason why we can't hire enough mental health providers to take care of the need that we have?
I'm going to try to be succinct, Mayor. As long as we have school shootings, we have issues like COVID, we have the high rates of substance use, fentanyl, abuse, the demand for mental health and addictions is only going to increase. And people are going to continue to put money out there towards it, and that will increase. So the amount of positions that have been created in the field, like today compared to 10 years ago, is double. The funding, though, has not doubled. Folks are interested in investing in what I call like bright, shiny objects. They want to invest in a new program. I'm like, let's take a look at the infrastructure. Our administrative base that we get for Umatilla County, like that's what we pay our car insurance, what we pay for our building payment, electricity, our salaries, hasn't seen an increase since 2003. I wasn't in Umatilla County. I speak for Morrow, Wheeler, Gillum, Grant, but it's the same. So, and then when you look at inflation, we've actually went backwards. So you can put in the funds for new programs. Those can be spent on staff to a point, but you can't spend it on, if I increase, I'm going to hire you and I'm going to pay you 30% more, I have to pay everybody else that's doing the same job 30% more. I have internal equity and bully issues. Like, I like my job. I don't think I look good in orange. So I'm very appreciative of the additional funds that came out. And there's been a few pieces of funding that I think that have been very helpful. I talked about the dollars for dedicated housing. I think that's very helpful. It's targeted, it's specific, it's needed. I would like for folks to take a step back and look at the infrastructure. And I absolutely understand the need to grow. It's just that we are not producing a workforce that meets the demand for the positions. And I'm just going to say it, like, it's just the work that we do isn't necessarily sexy. You know, like, you don't come out and make, Morrow County doesn't love Amazon right now, and I physically live in Morrow County, but you can, you know, get a job working at Amazon for $80,000 or $100,000. And that's pretty exciting. You can go to school and get your master's degree and come work for us for $55,000. It's not, I mean, we're competing in ways with companies that we never thought we would need to compete. And so we have supply and demand issues across the board, and it's showing up at the local level in ways that we never thought it would. So I better stop, because I have some feelings about that, but I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you know, and it's a general healthcare question. It's the same across the board, whether you're in mental health or you're in my profession. It seems though, you know, mental health is a unique challenge in that you're right, it's not a sexy profession, and the issues are hard. Every single one. Every day, it's a tearjerker. And I just applaud you and your staff for what they do every day. And so thank you for your willingness to take on Umatilla County. You could have easily turned us down and said no because you have so much more, not so much other stuff going on, and you didn't. And so again, thank you. Please pass along our appreciation for you and your staff, for all the hard work that they do for our constituents every day. Hopefully it brings a smile to their face, you know, knowing that we appreciate them. And, you know, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you. I wish that all of them could have heard this. So I will be sharing it with them on Wednesday. And Bill, I will follow up with you to see if we can't drill down a little deeper.
I don't know how much that's coming from DHS, just not getting stuff in, but if next time they tell me that, I'll at least send you an email and say, this is true, what they're telling me about these kids.
Please do.
Okay.
Please do.
So we look forward to next year. More great
Well,
things.
Be in touch next year. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. All right. So we're on to the rest of our city council meeting. We're at the first opportunity for citizen input on non-agenda items. So if there are people here this evening that would like to speak to the city council, please come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name and address, try to direct your comments to me and limit them to less than 5 minutes. We will have an opportunity for all the agenda items that you can personally speak to, but if you have a non-agenda item you'd like to speak about, welcome.
Good evening. I am Susan Bauer, and I am running for Umatilla County Commissioner. You asked for address, that's 70349 Lakeside Road in Pendleton, 97801. I'm here tonight to say hello, let you know where to get more information about me. I did bring some business cards. And also to let you know that I feel I bring an incredible business background to government, as well as a proven track record in leadership. And those are not skill sets or education based that are often found in government. And so I am really excited to be in a point in my life where I can put myself out there and pursue an elected official position. I am excited, really excited, about the growth in Hermiston, and I also acknowledge that much of the growth in our county is on the west side. That's really exciting. As a county commissioner, I am committed to have the county provide value-added services that help you accomplish your goals. And the reason I can be so confident about that in terms of grant writing, mentorship, and strategic planning support is because under the leadership of Bill Elfring, since 2013, I worked in economic development with and for Umatilla County, and we built programs where we did things like that. There was only one or two of us, so we weren't able to do it to the scope that I am committed to making those value-added county resource programs available. Under my leadership, over $5 million has come into Umatilla County from grant and otherwise funding. I'm also committed to enhancing the communication with the Hispanic and Latino communities. I have spent hours and hours with Jose Garcia. I'm learning a ton. I have also been at the Hispanic Advisory Committee and will be going again to be more specific in my plans. I am the only candidate who has published my material not only in English but also Spanish, and that was very intentional. And finally, an interest that I have as a candidate for county commissioner is everywhere I go, I'm hearing about excitement about our growth and concern about our public safety keeping pace with our growth. And homelessness comes usually in that conversation as well. And so I am committed to be at the table and encourage us to have public safety folks at the table as well as we grow, so that we can make sure that we are safe and we have the help in place and we don't get out of hand too fast. So I have these business cards, and I'd love to just pass them around. Website is available, and I encourage anyone who has any questions, or if I'd have an opportunity to visit with you, if I haven't already, one-on-one, I would love to visit with you more about what's on your mind, as well as why I feel that my qualifications and this time in Umatilla County's history make a good match. Thank you.
Susan, thank you for coming and speaking to us this evening. Thank you for your willingness to run for Umatilla County Commissioner.
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Any other people this evening? Come on up. Welcome.
Hi, I'm nervous. I'm really nervous.
We don't bite.
My name's Amy Young. My address is 80542 Patterson Ferry Road, space 4445, Oregon, Oregon, 97844. I was invited here by Nancy via Facebook. She binged me, and I'm like, I'm not ready for this. So I founded a nonprofit called LAPS, Incorporated, Living, Learning, and Loving, after and along with programs. So I am actually the last female that was in the Oxford house that was here 15 years ago. And that house saved my life, literally. I'm being tearful. This is what happens when you're nervous. So I got asked by Oregon Health Development Corporation to partner with them for their family resource on the 25th, their family resource event they're having in their parking lot from 11 to 3. So it will be my first event for my company. And so I am a peer support specialist that worked for Lifeways for 8 years, worked at Eastern Oregon Recovery Center for a year. And so I founded LAPS because I feel there's a lapse in the system before, after, in between. Maybe people have been through the other services that the community has and they want something else new. So I feel that I want to bridge that support for people. So our first project of the year, and I've gotten some support, is a mobile thrift and community fridge. So that's what we'll be offering at the Family Resource. Is we're picking up donations from folks from their yard sale, and it's going to be completely free. We've gotten grants so that I can go to the farmer market, so I can go to the farmers and get fresh fruit and vegetables, completely free for the people who come to these events. And our project is going to run from September, November, and October during the cooler months, because then we're hoping people will come out and go through the clothes, the household goods, the food, and just get to know us. And I already know a lot of people in the community. I've lived here all my life. My maiden name's Kowalski, so I have been all over this place. I've run and gunned in this place. I got in trouble. I've been 15 years sober and clean, and I just want to help people, literally. Sorry. I'm nervous, really, really nervous.
You're doing great.
Our next project will be an online platform for peers. When I say peers, it's clients to counseling systems. For me, it's people who I walk beside. I've done it with you. I'll do it sober with you as well. That platform will be where people can it's kind of like how Community Counseling Solution has the Day of Free Warm Line. This will be online platform where you can get peer support one-on-one. You can pick through 500 peers. We'll be partnering with this company called Hey Peers. And then they offer groups as well, like anxiety group, bipolar group, addiction groups, the Iron Tribe, which is folks who are coming in and out of jail and prison. So there's that lapse is what I keep coming back to. There has to be help. Everyone has to connect to each other, and I want to be that organization. We're very small. We just started in May. I've just May of last year. I'm just now starting to get out there. So I do have a letter from the president, which is me, and then our missions that I'm going to leave with you guys. But I really appreciate. I'm sorry. I feel like a silly girl because I was crying. I'm really emotional about helping people. Thank you.
Good for you. Amy?
Yes.
Is it Yang?
Huh?
What was your last name?
Young.
Young, okay. So you said you have a event, an open house or something?
So it's a family resource on the 25th. It'll
25th of September.
Yes.
Where's it at?
At the, let's see here, 955 Southeast 4th Street, Suite A. And I believe that's where the old DMV used to be, in that parking lot.
Okay, yeah.
There's several other organizations that is going to be there. It's going to be food, music, raffles, food, boxes, face painting, COVID vaccines.
Okay.
And boost, and it's all free.
Okay. 9 to 5, 9 or
11 to 3.
11 to 3 on 9/25.
At 955 Southeast 4th.
September 25th.
September 25th.
All right. Perfect.
It's on a Sunday.
Well, good luck. Thanks for coming this evening.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
Hey, and you did a great job. You got through it.
Huh?
And nobody bit you, right?
Huh?
Nobody bites.
Yeah. I wasn't ready. I was like, I'm not ready for this yet. 'Cause it's really being really slow.
Well, good luck to you. Appreciate your willingness to help out those people in our community that probably need some additional assistance. So.
You just got to walk beside them and do their recovery the way they want to do it. Everyone has it in them to want to do it.
Yeah.
Every program has to be tailored to them.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyone else this evening want to speak? Okay, we're going to move on to the rest of our agenda. We're going to start with the consent agenda, items A through E. Any of those need to be pulled?
Yes, Mayor, if you could pull E, I have a conflict of
Okay.
interest.
Any others need to be pulled? Any public content or comment, excuse me, on consent agenda items A through D? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A through D?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Spicer-Coon, seconded by Councilor Barone, that we approve consent agenda items A through D. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Okay, we pulled item E. Mr. Counselor Barone? Or Counselor Spicer-Coon, sorry.
Yeah, I have a conflict of interest. Mr. Nobles is a current client of mine.
Okay,
I'll excuse myself from the vote.
okay. Any other public comment on consent agenda item E? Any other council comments, discussion? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda item E?
So move.
Second.
Been moved by Counselor Drawn, seconded by Counselor Harden, that we approve consent agenda item E. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 5-0 with one abstention. Mr. Spicer-Coon. You can come back now, Mr. Spicer-Coon. I always think that's such a silly deal. But it's the way it's in our charter, so I get it. All right, so we're on to adoption of resolution 2237, safety action grant application. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, so last year, as part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which had a lot of funding, new and kind of extending existing programs, part of that, there was a number of transportation programs that look like they match up well for some of our projects, but one of the new requirements that was put in place was the need for us to adopt a safety action plan. And so basically the FHWA, the Federal Highways Administration, has been moving towards a goal kind of like Kimberly was talking about with suicide, but with traffic deaths. And so trying to go to zero fatalities. And so what they're requiring is before you apply, you need to have this safety action plan in place. And so they're offering grant funds to put together a safety action plan. So that's the first application we're going to make into these transportation programs. And part of that, Merchant McIntyre has recommended that we have a resolution from the council expressing, commitment to getting to that zero fatality type of a situation. So what we're asking for you tonight is to adopt this resolution that we'll use in first secure a grant for adopting or putting together a safety action plan for our streets.
Okay, perfect. Any questions by the council? Any public comment? Can I get a motion to adopt resolution 2237 laid upon the record?
Move.
Second.
It's been motioned by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor Spicer-Coon that we adopt resolution 2237, safety action grant application as presented and laid upon the record. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Committee, city committee and liaison reports. Anyone? Yes. Mr. Spicer-Coon?
Yeah, on September 7th, as liaison, I attended the Stepping Stones Alliance board meeting. It looks like they're moving ahead with plans now that they've secured the PATH grant. They've also had another donation from Senator Smith, which is almost doubled the amount of funding that they have. So I think right now, kind of where they're at is they're waiting for the Umatilla County to level and prep that area, and they have a mobile unit that they're going to bring in, and I think they've purchased a second mobile unit that's supposed to be delivered relatively soon. They're starting to work on they're calling them the Conestoga huts, but they'll be the individual living quarters for those, and they do have a work party September 24th that they're putting together to actually build those, so that'll be community volunteers will show up to build those. That would be in Umatilla, and they're working on getting employees and finding a chief executive officer who can handle and kind of lead and take everything by the reins and really make sure that everything's moving forward. So they're putting in a lot of work and a lot of time and effort into making sure that this gets done as soon as possible. I think they were trying to see if they could have something in place by this winter, since the warming shelter is now closed down, and so they're really trying to get things in place so that there's something there to take up that need in the community.
Perfect. Yes, Ms. Myers?
We did have a Parks and Rec Committee meeting last Thursday night. In it, we covered, there was a pool audit done, and the results for that should be in within 3 to 4 weeks. It's 20 years old, and it was said that it was in above average condition for the use that it's had, the time that, you know, for the age that it is. The high school still will be using the pool until the end of October. Next up was Riverfront Park. The playground has been started, and the target end to that is October, the end of October. Splash pad. The new pump house, the estimate came back in at $100,000. And so we're going to have to look for a different plan on that. Brendan said that he was looking into constructing it himself. And the concrete work on that will start in 2 weeks. Fireworks has been secured. They are Western Display out of Canby. Brandon has worked with them and negotiated. They will be here, for sure.
On July 4th?
Without fail.
On July 4th.
Yeah. On the 4th. Okay, Teen Adventure. Phase 1 will be going once again to the Planning Commission this coming Wednesday. And that was about what we went over.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I walked through Riverfront Park as part of the suicide awareness walk on Saturday, and was able to go down and see the new Riverfront Park and see all the other spaces all green, which I hadn't been down there in a while. The parking lot's gone, and the previous play area is all green, and so kids don't have anything to play on down there though. So hopefully October, yeah. Right? But the park looks great, and the pathway looked great. So it's nice to get out there and see all that. Any other committee reports?
Faith-based.
Yes, Councilor Harden?
We had a faith-based meeting on September the 6th, and the new youth advisor was introduced as Caitlin Watkins, and she indicated that this was her first choice of being a part of the committee, so we were happy to welcome her. But we've got one more elementary school to adopt through the faith-based with Loma Vista, so that's, we didn't figure out who that was, what group was doing that yet. And on October the 8th, from 11 to 4 is going to be the Hermiston Fall Festival. I believe it's at EOTech, is that correct? Am I right where the location is, or is it?
Yeah, there's going to be two events going on at EOTech. One is the Fall Festival, and that's the weekend-long event, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that Al's putting on barbecues and
that's right.
pianos and things. And then the Faith in Blue event is October 8th, 11 to 4.
11 to 4, right. So, and they're going to, they're creating a video to be pushed out to the community to let them know that this is a call for action from the faith-based community, and to support the law enforcement officials. And all the law enforcement officials, staff that have been invited to this event. So we're excited about it. And I noticed also that there's the Good Shepherds put out a new program called Soul Care, and to strengthen the relationship between the hospital and faith-based group. And so we're excited about that possibility of happening. So I think that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, Councilor Brown?
So we had an EOTech meeting at the first of the month. I fortunately was not able to be there, so maybe mayor or city manager may comment on that. The following week, though, we do have a Hispanic Advisory Committee. We're resuming, and we have a big topic, the Hispanic Resource Center that we're going to be chatting about. So we expect it to be pretty filled up with a lot of community feedback on what they'd like to see with this resource center if it potentially comes to fruition. And I don't really necessarily have an update on recreation projects funds, but I was meaning to ask our director, Brandon, on the previous years, the COVID years, on that funding with that. So I haven't gotten that question answered just yet. So I'd like to know kind of where we stand with previous years. It doesn't need to be immediate, but
I don't have that in front of me now. I'll get back to you.
that's fair. Thank you.
Are we going to have a Cinco de Mayo event this year?
Still kind of what happened this last year is the committee, the Hispanic Advisory Committee just kind of took over because there is an actual nonprofit committee for the Cinco de Mayo, and it just wasn't able to get up and going. So Hispanic Advisory Committee alongside with Al, who was big on that as well, was able to put it on. So we're hoping that this next upcoming year that it goes back to the nonprofit and what they're wanting to start up. I think they're also trying to seek more funding to be able to even have bands in the first place. With COVID, people booking things out, it just got really complicated. So we're hoping this year it starts back up. But I think the committee and the nonprofit committee will probably communicate over this next few months. So if we have any news on that, we'll pass it along.
Perfect. Thank you. We did have an EOTech Advisory Committee meeting. We did not have enough for a quorum, so we just kind of got some updates from the fair. We didn't have a rodeo representative there, so animal sales were up by more than $400,000 this year. They 1.1 million, I think, is what they sold. So again, over the top as far as sales for the kids. The community really comes out and supports them. They're thinking about moving Latino night next year to maybe Saturday. It happens to be one of their busiest nights at the fair, and so the rodeo is also pretty busy on Saturday night, so it would be pretty full packed house on Saturday night up there. But overall, the fair said their numbers were up, carnival was up, the vendors were up, parking was about the same. Mr. Bennett said that the fairgrounds looked great in shape for the fair. Amazon came in and gave all the kids large bumps on their sales, so they had over 150 plus campers this year, and 25 of them had to dry camp because they ran out of space. So overall, a really good year. They have some additional money. On the fair side, they got $1 million, and the city has some additional funds that we were awarded too, so they're looking at a hog barn expansion, extending it 50 feet to the north, I believe. So they are running, believe it or not, out of space in those buildings. So not having enough space for all the animals. They did say the shade cloths were a big bonus, you know, helping to protect the animals this year. Temperatures were about 20 degrees cooler, so that helped. But overall, it was a good year for the fair. Got some feedback just through Al on the rodeo. Friday and Saturday nights were some of their largest nights. In fact, I think Saturday night they sold out. So I think, which is the first time ever up there. So that was good. And they had some good money added this year, and so they attracted some of the best cowboys from the nation. Got a little update on the field expansion. You know, they're at $300,000 in donations so far at that point. This was a couple weeks ago. They're looking to do some topographic surveys to see what needs to be done to those fields. Still working on the water issues as well. And EOTech is getting up and rolling again now that the Fair and Rodeo's done. They had champions up there for a couple weeks because the schools weren't open yet. So they had about 100 kids in their champions program. They had a World Series of roping, which is happening or did happen. I don't know, sometime right about now. And he also mentioned the October 7th through 9th event with dueling pianos, a barbecue contest, and Faith in the Blue event all over that same weekend. And then Mr. Smith talked a little bit about potentially rebranding EOTech. So I think that's probably a conversation you're going to have with the council at some point. And Al said that the events are about the same quantity now and as pre-COVID. So he's getting up there again with booking out the facility. That's the EOTech report. Did I miss anything, Mr. Smith? Did you want to touch on that branding really quick? Okay, perfect. As far as the mayor's report, we had a mayor's and city managers meeting last week. And the county and the city of Hermiston and the city of Umatilla are working on a MOU for I-82 interchange. That's going to go over Pumpkin Center Bridge. We talked a little bit about that. We talked about the PATH program, and still negotiating a contract with Stepping Stones. DEQ IGA is coming along, and I asked the question about costs because one of the things that I'm participating on is a homelessness task force. Mayor's task force that was put together by the Oregon Mayors Association. There's about 15 of us mayors from across the state, and we're trying to figure out what it would cost to each of our communities or how much we spend currently on homelessness services within our community. And so that facility is going to cost somewhere around $425,000 a year to run. And so we have an agreement after our 2 years of this pilot program to take on that responsibility. And so part of what the coalition with the Oregon Mayors Association is to work alongside our other partners, including the county, to try and figure out legislative conversations to help increase the revenue, the state's ownership in the homelessness situation. States around us are spending, California put $3 billion into homelessness programs last session. Washington State put over $500 million into their programs. Oregon put $50 million. So trying to create some ownership and awareness for the significance of the problem, and trying to get some additional state resources to help us fund that extra $425,000 a year we'll be responsible for. So good conversation. We had a really good mayor's managers meeting. Everybody was represented. We had 3 mayors there. We don't normally have any mayors besides me there, so it's nice to have all, to have 3 out of the 4. LFC has actually a homelessness, I can't remember what it's called now. Workshop, addressing homelessness within your community. Workshop. It's going to be here at the community center next Monday, right? Yeah, next Monday.
There you go.
The time, do you have the time on you, Byron? I got it on my calendar here. 10:30 to 3. 10:30 to 3. Yeah, so if you, What? Monday, 10:30 to 3. Here at the community center. There was a online registration. It's your community, so you could probably just show up. You'd probably be welcome if you didn't sign up, but there was an online registration. Or Lily could probably help you with that, if you're interested. And just a reminder, LFC conference, if you haven't registered already, is coming up here next month, a couple weeks, 3, 4 weeks. Yeah, right around the corner. Hopefully I get to see all of you down there. That's all I have. Anything else from the council?
Well, if we're talking LOC stuff, so I've signed on to another round for board of directors for the Women's Caucus. If somebody from our region says they want to do it, I will happily back down and say, hey, great, have a turn. But otherwise, I agreed to another round. I got to help judge the Excellence Awards. So those of you that do go to the conference, you'll get to see the actual projects that were put out. And I got to say that Oregon has done a fine job this year. And so I got to, read about them, and the ingenuity that this state has is, you're going to be blown away. I mean, of all of them, you're going to be blown away. And so, because it was just like, as I said, it was amazing. And it's just going to make you want to come back and go like, oh, we saw these great ideas. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not allowed to say anymore. And then also I've been doing the Oregon Disability Commission, which, by the way, again, there's a lot of commissions out there. If there's something you're passionate about, get on there, apply. Yeah, it takes a little while for all of the wheels to turn, but you don't have to be elected to get involved. You just have to go through the process, attend a couple of meetings. If you got a passion, chances are there's a commission about it. So, but we actually were discussing how homelessness and disability combine, and how actually in one particular city, there's a particular lawsuit that's going through that is about like sidewalks and tents and stuff. And so it's going to be interesting how things happen and what order they happen in, because sidewalks have to be accessible. Yeah, so that's why it's kind of like seeing like, okay, what's going to push what incentive first. And also that, there is a large percentage of the homeless population that has a disability of all different varieties. So a lot of addiction is based upon, self-medication. So anyway, so that's from my neck of the woods. I've been a busy bee.
Others? Council? Yes?
I did attend both ribbon cuttings for our fabulous new schools, and they really are incredible. I saw a lot of other counselors. There was a lot of participation and really good turnout on both of them.
That was nice to see. Ms. Smith?
So as far as the branding goes, I reached back out to the company that we worked with to establish the branding for two reasons. One, just to do a quick check-in, have them help us check and make sure that we're kind of following what we said we would do as far as keeping the brand, keeping the message strong and staying with the similar message. But then also to look at rebranding EOTech with something that's more related to the city logo, since we will now be operating it all full time. So I've just kind of got the detail out, and we'll be starting stakeholder types come back and probably toward the end of the year. The next item, I got an email late this afternoon. Our furniture is scheduled to be installed at City Hall the week of September 26th.
Whoa.
Better worry.
So hope that makes me a lot more comfortable that we can hit the October 10th City Council meeting. So we're continuing to make plans with that.
Nice. Good
Yeah.
work.
Exciting. Then the last item, just to let the council know, I'll be out of the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week for the International City Managers Association. I'll be in Columbus, Ohio. So.
Mr. Smith, do you have a goal-setting session dates yet? Okay. All right. Soon as possible. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. We are adjourned.